Great games stay with us because of their stories. They're the ones that make us laugh, cry, question ourselves, and remember moments long after the credits roll. Today, we're counting down 25 of the best story-driven games of all time. Experiences that prove games aren't just entertainment, but powerful storytelling. Firewatch. Firewatch is a quiet, intimate story set against the vast wilderness of Wyoming. You play as Henry, a man seeking escape from the pain of his personal life who takes a summer job as a fire lookout. His only connection to the outside world is Delilah, his supervisor on the other end of a radio. Their conversations form the heart of the story, witty, awkward, sometimes tender, and always deeply human. The narrative is less about the mystery of strange events in the forest and more about the emotional isolation and vulnerability of its characters. The setting mirrors Henry's internal struggles. The beautiful landscapes feel both freeing and lonely, a reminder of how silence can comfort and haunt in equal measure. Firewatch's genius lies in how it makes you care about two people who never meet face to face yet share an intimacy stronger than most. It's a story about connection, regret, and the fragile hope of starting over. Simple in design, profound in execution, Firewatch lingers as one of gaming's most human stories. What Remains of Edith Finch? What Remains of Edith Finch is less a game and more a haunting collection of memories, a family album where every page ends in tragedy. You step into the Finch household, a place frozen in time, each room a monument to a life cut short. As Edith, the last surviving member, you wander through these spaces and uncover the surreal, often heartbreaking stories of your relatives. Each vignette plays differently, sometimes whimsical, sometimes devastating, reflecting not just how they lived, but how they died. What makes the narrative powerful is how it blends the mundane with the fantastical, turning everyday activities into metaphors for mortality and memory. Beneath the strange stories lies a very human truth. Families are defined as much by loss as by love. The game doesn't offer clear answers, only an exploration of how people cope with the inevitability of death. By the end, Edith's voice becomes both a eulogy and a legacy, reminding us that while life is fleeting, stories endure. It's a deeply personal journey that lingers long after the credits roll. Next, Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is unlike any other RPG, a story-driven descent into the fractured mind of a man who has lost everything, including himself. You play as a washed-up detective with no memory of who he is, tasked with solving a brutal murder in the decaying city of Rebachal. What makes this story extraordinary is how it uses dialogue, philosophy, and player choice to shape not just the investigation, but the detective's very identity. The voices in your head, fragments of your psyche, become characters themselves, pulling you between reason, doubt, self-destruction, and hope. Every conversation, every choice, every failure paints a picture of a man at war with his past, his addictions, and the dying world around him. The murder mystery is compelling, but it's the exploration of morality, politics, and human fragility that makes it unforgettable. Disco Elysium is less about finding answers and more about asking the right questions about yourself, about society, about what it means to keep going when everything seems broken. It's a masterpiece of interactive storytelling, raw and uncompromising. Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain is an interactive drama that places you at the center of a desperate search for a child's life. Told through 4 different perspectives, the story revolves around the origami killer, a murderer who leaves behind folded paper figures at the scenes of his crimes. Each character, Ethan, a grieving father, Madison, a determined journalist, Norman, an FBI profiler, and Shelby, a private detective, brings their own strengths and flaws to the narrative. What makes Heavy Rain powerful is its willingness to give the player control over critical decisions, each one carrying weight and consequence. Choices can save lives, destroy them, or completely alter the ending of the story. It's a game about sacrifice, morality, and how far we're willing to go for the ones we love. While not without flaws, Heavy Rain remains groundbreaking in how it blurred the line between video games and cinematic storytelling. It's less about action and more about empathy, forcing players to live with the consequences of every choice they make. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is an intimate and harrowing journey into the mind of a woman haunted by grief and psychosis. Senua, a Celtic warrior, ventures into the Norse underworld of Helheim to rescue the soul of her lost lover. But the true battle is within. Voices echo in her head, illusions distort her reality, and every step forward blurs the line between myth and madness. What makes Hellblade remarkable is its portrayal of mental illness, created with consultation from neuroscientists and people who live with psychosis. The game's binaural audio design makes players hear what Senua hears, feel her fear, and share her confusion. Beneath the darkness lies a story of resilience, love, and acceptance, not of defeating her condition, but learning to live with it. Hellblade is both heartbreaking and empowering, a rare game that treats mental health with honesty and empathy. It's not just a tale of gods and warriors, but a human story of courage in the face of overwhelming despair. Next, A Plague Tale: Innocence. A Plague Tale: Innocence is a haunting tale of survival set in 14th century France during the Black Death. You play as Amicia, a young girl forced to protect her younger brother Hugo after their family is torn apart. Together, they flee a world consumed by war, plague, and the terrifying swarms of rats that devour everything in their path. The story is both intimate and devastating, built on the fragile bond between siblings who must grow to trust one another in unimaginable circumstances. Amicia's role shifts from reluctant caretaker to fierce protector, while Hugo's innocence collides with the horrifying reality of his mysterious powers. The game doesn't just tell a story of survival, it explores love, sacrifice, and the resilience of children in a world that has lost its humanity. Every moment of quiet tenderness contrasts with the relentless darkness, making the journey both heartbreaking and beautiful. A Plague Tale: Innocence is a story about family enduring against impossible odds, and it lingers long after the final chapter. BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite transports players to Columbia, a floating city that shines like a utopia but hides deep corruption beneath its patriotic facade. You step into the shoes of Booker DeWitt, a man burdened by debt and regret, tasked with finding a mysterious girl named Elizabeth. What begins as a simple rescue mission becomes a profound exploration of choice, consequence, and the weight of our past. The relationship between Booker and Elizabeth is the emotional core, growing from reluctant partnership to something far deeper, as both characters confront painful truths about themselves. Columbia itself is as much a character as the people within it, a city that embodies the dangers of zealotry, racism, and blind nationalism. And then there are the twists, revelations that reframe everything you thought you understood about the story. Few games dare to challenge the player with questions about identity, redemption, and the nature of reality itself, but Infinite does so masterfully. It's a narrative that's bold, heartbreaking, and unforgettable, a story that lingers in the mind long after you've left the clouds behind. Next, Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 is a long-awaited sequel that transforms the cult classic into a full-fledged survival horror experience, but at its core, it's still about stories and the power they hold over us. 13 years after the original, Alan remains trapped in the Dark Place, a nightmare realm where fiction and reality intertwine. His fight to escape becomes a metafictional journey where writing, memory, and identity blur together. Alongside him, newcomer Saga Anderson investigates a string of ritualistic murders in Bright Falls, weaving two narratives that slowly spiral into one. What sets Alan Wake 2 apart is its commitment to atmosphere. Every scene drips with tension, every word feels deliberate, and every revelation pushes you deeper into its layered narrative. It's a game about creativity as both salvation and damnation, about how the stories we tell can shape and imprison us. More than just a horror game, Alan Wake 2 is a meditation on authorship, obsession, and the fine line between light and darkness. Next, Mafia Definitive Edition. Mafia Definitive Edition reimagines a classic tale of crime and consequence, immersing players in the gritty underworld of 1930s Lost Heaven. At the center is Tommy Angelo, a humble cab driver whose chance encounter with the Salieri crime family pulls him into a world of power, loyalty, and betrayal. The beauty of this story lies in its restraint. It doesn't glorify violence, but examines the slow corruption of a man who once only wanted a better life. The remastered cinematic presentation and strong performances breathe new life into Tommy's rise and inevitable fall. His relationships, especially with Polly and Sam, form the emotional core, showing how camaraderie in the mob is always tainted by suspicion. By the time Tommy reflects on the cost of his choices, the tragedy is clear. He gained everything only to lose what mattered most. It's a timeless story, not about flashy heists or endless gunfights, but about how ambition and survival can erode the soul. Like the best crime dramas, it's intimate, tragic, and unforgettable. Next, Assassin's Creed Origins. Assassin's Creed Origins transports players to ancient Egypt, telling the story of Bayek of Siwa, a Medjay whose life is shattered by personal tragedy. What begins as a quest for justice slowly transforms into something greater, the birth of the Assassin Brotherhood. Bayek's journey is as much about grief and love as it is about politics and power, and his relationship with Aya, his wife and ally, adds both intimacy and heartbreak to the narrative. Together, their personal loss evolves into a philosophy that challenges tyranny itself. The world around them is breathtakingly alive, bustling cities, sacred temples, and endless deserts that ground the story in history while elevating it to myth. What makes Origins powerful is its pacing, giving space for both quiet reflection and sweeping revelations. Bayek's transformation from protector to revolutionary is a tale of ideals forged in pain, proving that even in the darkest moments, hope can be born. It stands as one of the most emotionally resonant stories in the Assassin's Creed saga. Next, Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn blends science fiction with myth, creating a story both epic in scale and deeply personal. You play as Aloy, an outcast raised in a world overrun by mechanical beasts, searching for the truth about her origins and the secrets of the old ones. Her journey takes her across stunning landscapes and ancient ruins, uncovering a lost history of human hubris and technological downfall. But while the backdrop is grand, the heart of the story is Aloy herself. Her determination to find belonging, to fight for those who would shun her, and to carry the weight of humanity's past mistakes. The narrative balances mystery and revelation beautifully, peeling back layers of the world's collapse until the final truths hit with devastating clarity. Horizon Zero Dawn is not just a tale of survival against machines, but of identity, resilience, and the courage to face truths that others would rather forget. It's a story as awe-inspiring as the world it inhabits. Marvel Spider-Man. Marvel Spider-Man is more than a superhero story. It's a heartfelt tale about responsibility, sacrifice, and the dual life of Peter Parker. At its core, the narrative explores the balance between being a hero and simply being human. Peter has already worn the mask for years, but his battles against villains like Mr. Negative and Dr. Octopus test not just his strength, but his relationships and values. What makes the story stand out is its emotional grounding. Peter's bond with Aunt May, his mentorship of Miles Morales, and his enduring but fragile love for Mary Jane. These relationships give weight to every choice, every sacrifice, and every victory. By the end, Peter's losses feel as profound as his triumphs, reminding us that being Spider-Man isn't about glory, but about enduring hardship for the sake of others. It's a story filled with heart, tragedy, and hope, one that captures the very essence of what makes Spider-Man timeless. Detroit: Become Human. Detroit: Become Human is a branching narrative about freedom, identity, and what it means to be alive. Set in a near future where androids serve humanity, the story follows three protagonists: Connor, the deviant hunting detective; Kara, a housekeeper who becomes a protector; and Marcus, who rises as a revolutionary leader. What makes the story so compelling is choice. Every decision shapes their personalities, relationships, and ultimate fates. Through these characters, the game explores themes of prejudice, autonomy, and morality, forcing players to reflect on their own values. Will Marcus lead a peaceful protest or a violent uprising? Will Kara sacrifice everything for her surrogate family? Will Connor remain loyal to his programming or discover his own humanity? Each path feels deeply personal, giving the story immense replayability and emotional resonance. At its heart, Detroit: Become Human is about empathy, about seeing yourself in those who are different and asking whether humanity is defined by biology or by compassion. Life is Strange. Life is Strange tells a story of Max Caulfield, a photography student who discovers she can rewind time. At first, it feels like a gift, a way to fix mistakes and protect the people she cares about. But as the story unfolds, Max learns that every choice has consequences, and that trying to control fate often creates greater tragedy. At the heart of the game is her relationship with Chloe Price, a rebellious childhood friend whose bond with Max is tested by secrets, loss, and the weight of destiny. What makes Life is Strange special is its focus on the quiet, everyday struggles of growing up: friendship, identity, grief, set against the looming storm that threatens to destroy Arcadia Bay. It's intimate and heartfelt, reminding players that sometimes the most powerful stories aren't about saving the world, but about saving the people who mean the world to us. Emotional, raw, and unforgettable, Life is Strange captures the fragile beauty of youth and the pain of letting go. Next, Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is both a swashbuckling adventure and a deeply personal story of closure. Nathan Drake, once a treasure hunter chasing myths and fortune, finds himself pulled back into danger when his long-lost brother Sam resurfaces. What follows is a globe-trotting quest for pirate treasure, filled with breathtaking set pieces and larger-than-life challenges. But beneath the spectacle, the story is about family, loyalty, and the cost of obsession. Nate is torn between the thrill of adventure and the quiet stability of life with Elena, and the narrative forces him to confront what truly matters. The game balances humor, action, and emotional depth, culminating in an ending that feels both bittersweet and fitting. A Thief's End isn't just about the chase for treasure. It's about letting go, about realizing that the greatest riches aren't found in lost cities, but in the relationships we hold on to. It's a perfect farewell to one of gaming's most beloved characters. Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 is the centerpiece of BioWare's epic trilogy, a game that perfects the art of ensemble storytelling. As Commander Shepard, you're recruited by the shadowy Cerberus organization to stop the mysterious collectors who are abducting entire human colonies. But the real heart of the story lies not in the mission, but in your crew. Each companion has their own history, trauma, and loyalty, and whether they live or die depends on how much you earn their trust. The famed suicide mission isn't just a climactic battle, it's the culmination of every choice you've made, every bond you've built. Few games capture the weight of leadership like Mass Effect 2, where strategy and empathy are equally vital to survival. It's a story about unity in the face of impossible odds, about finding strength in diversity, and about what it truly means to be a hero. Decades later, it still stands as one of gaming's greatest space operas. Next, Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is a story about survival, ideology, and the power of choice in a lawless wasteland. You begin as a courier, left for dead in the desert, with no grand destiny, just a question of who tried to kill you and why. But as you chase that mystery, you're drawn into a conflict that will decide the fate of the Mojave. The beauty of New Vegas lies in its freedom. Will you side with the New California Republic, the authoritarian Caesar's Legion, the enigmatic Mr. House, or carve your own path to independence? Each choice reshapes the world and reflects your personal vision of order, chaos, or freedom. The Mojave is alive with factions, moral dilemmas, and gray areas. There are no perfect heroes, only compromises. Beneath the radiation and dust, New Vegas is a mirror of our own struggles with power, loyalty, and survival. It's less about saving the world and more about deciding what kind of world is worth saving. Next, Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 tells a story of ambition, identity, and mortality set against the neon-lit chaos of Night City. You play as V, a mercenary caught in a struggle for survival after a botched job leaves your mind entangled with the digital ghost of rocker turned revolutionary Johnny Silverhand. What follows is a journey of choices: who you trust, how you live, and what you're willing to sacrifice for freedom or survival. Night City itself is a character, dazzling, ruthless, and indifferent, a place where dreams are bought and sold and every deal has a cost. The narrative thrives in its personal connections, from Judy's fight for justice to Panam's loyalty to Johnny's reluctant bond with V. Beneath the tech and spectacle, Cyberpunk 2077 is a story about the inevitability of death and how we define our legacy in a world built to erase us. It's not a tale of saving the world, but of carving out meaning in a city that swallows people whole. Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is a story of honor, sacrifice, and transformation set during the Mongol invasion of Japan. You play as Jin Sakai, a samurai forced to abandon tradition in order to protect his people. Torn between the strict code of the samurai and the ruthless necessity of guerrilla warfare, Jin's journey becomes one of identity. Is he a noble warrior bound by honor, or the feared ghost who strikes from the shadows? The narrative thrives on this tension, weaving in themes of family, loyalty, and betrayal, while grounding them in a stunning world of windswept fields and sacred shrines. Relationships with characters like Yuna, Lord Shimura, and Raizo deepen Jin's struggle, making his choices feel personal and painful. By the end, Ghost of Tsushima is less about victory and more about the cost of survival, what must be sacrificed to protect the homeland. It's a tale both epic and intimate, where the weight of tradition clashes with the demands of change. Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal is more than just a JRPG. It's a sprawling tale about rebellion, friendship, and the search for truth in a corrupt world. You play as a nameless protagonist wronged by society, who discovers the ability to enter the metaverse and fight against distorted desires. With his companions, the Phantom Thieves, he takes on the role of a modern-day vigilante, stealing the hearts of the corrupt to free people from oppression. Royal expands on the original Persona 5 with a new semester, new characters, and deeper personal arcs, making the story even richer and more emotionally resonant. The game balances epic battles against gods and conspiracies with quiet human moments, after-school conversations, bonds of trust, and the small joys of everyday life. At its heart, Persona 5 Royal is about identity, who we are beneath the masks we wear, and how we can inspire change in a world that feels rigged against us. Stylish, heartfelt, and unforgettable, it stands as one of the greatest modern storytelling experiences in gaming. Next, The Last of Us. The Last of Us is a brutal, heartbreaking story about love, survival, and the lengths we go to protect the people we care about. Joel, a hardened survivor scarred by loss, is tasked with escorting Ellie, a young girl immune to the infection that has ravaged humanity, across a collapsing America. What begins as a reluctant partnership grows into a bond that feels like family, fragile, flawed, and deeply human. The narrative doesn't shy away from darkness. It's filled with moments of horror, desperation, and moral compromise. But it's also about quiet moments, stolen laughs, shared stories, and the hope that endures even in a broken world. The climax forces players to confront uncomfortable truths about love and selfishness, asking whether Joel's final decision was an act of protection or destruction. Few stories in gaming are as emotionally charged, and fewer still leave players questioning their own morality. The Last of Us isn't just a game about survival, it's a story about what it means to live. Next, God of War. God of War is both a reinvention and a continuation, transforming Kratos from a vengeful godslayer into a father burdened by his past. The story follows Kratos and his son, Atreus, on a journey to scatter the ashes of Atreus' mother atop the highest peak in the realms. What begins as a simple quest unfolds into a profound exploration of grief, legacy, and the bond between father and son. The brilliance of the narrative lies in its restraint, the quiet conversations, the hesitations, the moments of silence where emotion says more than words. As they travel, Kratos struggles with vulnerability, hiding his guilt and rage, while Atreus slowly learns what it means to carry both strength and responsibility. The backdrop of Norse mythology enriches the story, turning gods and monsters into mirrors of Kratos' own struggles. By the end, it's not just about gods or fate, but about a father learning to guide his son without repeating his own mistakes. God of War is a deeply human story wrapped in myth, and one of gaming's most powerful reinventions. Next, The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt is a masterclass in storytelling, blending myth, politics, and personal drama into one of gaming's most celebrated narratives. You play as Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter searching for his adopted daughter, Ciri, while navigating a world at war. On the surface, it's a fantasy epic of kings, sorceresses, and prophecies, but at its heart, it's about family, love, and the choices that shape who we are. The strength of The Witcher 3 lies not just in its main plot, but in the countless side stories, quests that feel like novels of their own, each one exploring human nature, morality, and consequence. Characters like Yennefer, Triss, and Vesemir bring depth to Geralt's journey, grounding the fantasy in emotional truth. The game constantly asks you to make decisions without easy answers, forcing you to live with the fallout. Whether in moments of heartbreak or triumph, The Witcher 3 captures the feeling of living in a fully realized world, where every story matters. It's not just a great RPG, it's one of the finest tales ever told in gaming. Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is a monumental RPG that combines classic Dungeons & Dragons storytelling with modern cinematic depth. It begins with a desperate fight for survival. You and your companions are infected with a mind flayer parasite, but quickly expands into a sweeping tale of freedom, morality, and destiny. What makes the narrative so powerful is choice. Every decision, big or small, shapes the world around you and the fate of those who travel by your side. Your companions are more than party members. They are fully realized characters with personal struggles, ambitions, and ideals that clash with your own. The story isn't just about defeating evil, but about how you confront power, temptation, and the weight of leadership. Few games allow such freedom to define your own arc, whether as a savior, a tyrant, or something in between. Baldur's Gate 3 is storytelling at its most interactive, a sprawling narrative that feels uniquely yours, yet universally unforgettable. Number 1. Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the most emotionally powerful stories in gaming, a sweeping Western epic that balances loyalty, morality, and the inevitability of change. You step into the boots of Arthur Morgan, an outlaw torn between his loyalty to Dutch's gang and the quiet realization that the world he knows is slipping away. Arthur's journey isn't just about gunslinging or freedom, it's about reckoning with the choices of a life built on violence and deciding what kind of man he will be in the end. The characters around him, John Marston, Sadie Adler, and Dutch van der Linde, all carry their own arcs, weaving into a narrative about found family, betrayal, and survival. What makes the story unforgettable is its pacing, the quiet moments of reflection, the songs by a campfire, the way Arthur writes his thoughts in a journal. By the end, the tragedy isn't just Arthur's, but the death of an era. Red Dead Redemption 2 is more than a Western, it's a meditation on honor, mortality, and the cost of freedom. From intimate dramas to epic adventures, these games show the many ways stories can move us. But of course, every player's journey is different, so which story game left the biggest impact on you? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this list, don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming deep dives. Until next time, keep playing and keep experiencing great stories.